try to go for it without Facebook.
So we're good on Periscope?
It's good.
Okay, I'm going to go live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling, and we have a very special guest in the studio here today, USC's newest drum major, India Anderson. We're so excited to have her here on today's episode. So if you have any questions for her, you can either call in. We're taking live calls, 512-4-TUNNEL. You can also comment your questions either on YouTube or Periscope. I believe we're having some difficulty with Facebook. We're going to try and figure that out. But be sure to get your questions in. Besides India, today we're going to be talking about the NFL Draft. How did USC fare in the draft? We're also going to talk about a new transfer that USC picked up on Friday, some help on the offensive line for the Trojans. And of course, we'll be taking your normal, regular questions about the team, anything USC related in the second half of the show. So be sure to comment those and we will get to them soon. But like I said, a very special guest today, the newest USC drum major and the first female drum major, India Anderson, is joining us today. Ryan, I heard that you had a setup for this?
Little bit. Well, welcome, India.
Yes,
thanks for
having
coming.
me, yeah.
We forgot to put up her graphic. You can follow her on Twitter. She's taken over the USC drum major tour at USC drum major.
Yeah.
And so pretty cool. But okay, so obviously the first female drum major, as Keely mentioned. Mm-hmm. All I want to know is, you're spending the day. It's August 31st. Picture the day, August 31st.
Right.
Late afternoon. You're at Heritage Hall. The whole band gathers. You're walking through, doing all the concerts throughout campus. You're carrying the sword around, which she has here. We'll show you guys. You can show it right now.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Ayo.
Going through it, doing all the, very special moments. You're performing for the people for the first time as the leader of the Trojan Marching Band.
Right.
But then you cross over. You pass the flagpoles. Maybe do you guys kick the flagpoles when you go by? You guys kick them too. A long time standing USC tradition. You cross exposition, then you see the Coliseum. It's up there. Mm-hmm. This is like, okay, now this is getting real. You go now, you're going through the tunnel. You're in the band. The band's playing. It's echoing inside the tunnel. That old tunnel has been there for like about 100 years, and you can hear it. And you're the person carrying the sword out there. The players are out in the field getting ready. Everyone's practicing stuff. You guys are out there with the drums doing what they do. Both you're marching to it. You're standing on the sidelines watching the players finish up. The horn blows, and then they run off the field. And then it's you.
Yeah.
It's only you. The whistle blows. You're walking out to the middle of the field. The sword play is going on, and you're about to stab. What is going through your mind at that point?
I mean, this position, it's just been something that I've been really looking forward to do for a long time. I prepared a lot for the audition. It's been more than a semester-long thing, honestly. I was really thinking about it even January of last year. And I know the old drum major, he was in the same section I was, the tubas. And I mean, it's just been something I've been thinking about almost since I joined the band. And I think that moment, especially with everyone looking at the first female drum major, it's just going to be crazy. I mean, that first stab, I think the energy in that stadium is going to be wild.
Yeah, there's probably going to be a bunch of Fresno State fans there too. The opening of the Coliseum, it's just going to be such a new experience. Is that going to be are you going to be nervous as hell? What do you think?
I mean,
not that I'm going to make you nervous as hell now, but what do you think?
I mean, a little bit, I'm sure, but I mean, I'm a tuba performance major, so I'm used to being in the spotlight, and it is something that I've thought about for such a long time. So, I mean, all the work that I've put into it, I feel like it's a position that I've really just, I don't want to say deserved to get because it was the band's choice, but one that I've really put in the work for. And so just to be able to have that privilege to go out and lead the band and stab the field, I mean, I don't think I would really be that nervous for it.
Nice. And so you're a tuba tradition there.
I guess so.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, you were voted, right, by the band members. I heard it was kind of a landslide.
Well, I don't know about the specific numbers, no, but
Keely, isn't that's the intel we were getting?
I have a source that says you got pretty good numbers.
Right. Well.
Keely's pretty good with the sources.
Yeah, the band votes on it. It's basically the routine after the stab we do for the audition. So we march to fanfare, tribute, fight on, and then we give a speech in front of the whole band. And the whole band votes, and a lot of people think it was a PR sort of thing, but it was not. Dr. Bartner actually doesn't even get a vote. So it's totally the band's election.
When did you kind of eye that position as something that you wanted to do?
I think last year, so Chris, he was the last drum major from the tubas. He was running for his second year of drum major last year because even if you get it and you are an incoming junior, you still have to run again to get it. And I was just seeing the audition and I was just thinking, like, you know, like I really like being a part of the band. Like this is some way I could give back even more to the band. And then watching his audition, I thought, you know, like I could do that. Why not?
Do you enjoy the spotlight? Because obviously that is the head of the band. You know, you see the band, and it's, you know, a bunch of kind of faceless people that create a great entity. But the drum major itself is front and center, is the one that is the camera's going to be in front of everything. You know, when you look at the spotlight of it, how did you kind of prepare for that part of it?
I mean, I think I've had practice obviously in the music school with all those performances, but I mean, I guess it'll just be something I'll have to figure out. You know, I don't think the position is really like a spotlight sort of thing. It's just like whoever cares about the band the most, whoever like represents the band the best. And I mean, I think if those considerations are all in line with the band, like, I mean, I don't know. I'm doing it because I really like the band, not just because I want to be up there in front of them.
It's funny, like when I was a student at USC, one of my best friends was like a drummer, and well, he starts off as a cymbal guy, and you didn't know all the intricacies of the band. Like if you're in high school, I have no musical talent, so I couldn't do anything in high school, but the band people were just like, you know, whatever, and like we hung out with sports people, whatever. It was different kind of things. But when you got to college, like it was definitely cool to be in the band. People it was like this fraternity sort of thing, and very different. You know, it's this group that everyone seems to look up to. You guys are cool, wearing the sunglasses. You play, you know, the only band in the world with a platinum album that's on Tusk.
Two
platinum. Oh, yeah. I mean, so it's like the cool factor. I don't know if you felt that at USC. That's it, like you're kind of in this cool group.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, marching band at my high school is, I'm sure, the way marching band is at a lot of other high schools. You know, it's a great community, but like it's not as cool as it is in college. And like at USC, it was just great coming in and like, you know, it is so much more of a culture, you know, like it's so many more people. It's like you're at the games a lot longer. We all get together Friday nights. We're all so much closer to our sections. Like I think like at USC especially, the culture of the band is just something I think that is really special for any kind of organization. And I'm really glad that I'm able to be such a big part of it now.
That's awesome. So there is a history there of women have tried out, they've tried out for the position. And when I think it was an article from Annenberg or something like that. And so one of our former interns, Stephanie Graves, 10 years ago tried out for that.
Yeah.
Which is funny. So I texted her and she 100% support behind you. And she felt at the time, they probably weren't exactly ready. And she's a more diminutive person. She's like 5'2" or something. You're 5'11", so you're holding the sword. There's a sturdiness there. It looks right. I don't know if people were ready, but Stephanie was very excited for you. So so I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to pass that along. She was very excited that you got the gig. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, a lot of I think there have been 3 who have tried out before me, and I mean, I didn't do it to be an image, I just feel like I really appreciate the band and love doing it so much that I want to give back even more. But I'm glad now that there is, now there is a precedent for female drum majors to exist. Like, I was talking to the old drum major, and he was like, you'll have little kids dressed up as the drum major come up to you, like little boys, and now maybe little girls.
Yeah.
And I think the first little girl that comes up to me, if she's dressed up as the drum major, I can't smile with the sword, but
You're not allowed to smile with the sword in your hand?
No.
Oh.
But on the inside, my heart will melt.
That's awesome. So there's rules. There's a lot of rules you got to follow.
Yeah, it's definitely a big image, because it is such a big part of the band and the university.
Nice. Should we show the sword? You want to pull that thing out and see?
This is the sword, yeah.
Nice. So then, now this is the practice sword.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right. So we don't have a real one here, but it's about the same.
Yeah. The game day sword is a little bit bigger. The handle is a little bit wider. This one is what we mostly use at just rehearsals and everything. The game day sword is what we mostly obviously we use it at the football games.
Nice. Very cool. So if you want to call in, you want to talk to India, 5124-TUNNEL.
We actually have a live caller currently for India, so let's go to that.
I feel bad. We have a couple of guests in the studio. They're not going to be able to hear this, so sorry about that.
Yeah, we have Jeremiah from Snake Lake.
Oh, Jeremiah.
Hello.
Jeremiah from Snake Lake. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you, Jeremiah.
Oh, how's everybody doing?
We're good, bud. Thanks.
What's your comment for the team?
Doing good. I want to say years ago I was in favor of women voting, and I think it's paid off on the daylight today because this woman is going to be fantastic. I was also in favor of an all-female Charlie's Angels, and I know she was talking about image earlier. There was a prophet named Andre Agassi who used to say all the time, "Image is everything." So this Mr.
We're losing Jeremiah, I think.
Oh no.
Dark.
Jeremiah, you calling from a
Dark
tunnel or
couple of
something?
Snake Lake.
Snake Lake doesn't have good reception, apparently.
Yeah, apparently not.
He's very
okay.
progressive in Snake Lake, though.
Yeah, apparently so. Well, thanks for the support,
Yeah, thank
Jeremiah. Interesting caller. I had a couple questions for you.
Yeah, please.
I mean, a lot of fame has come in the last couple days since you've been named the drum major. How have you handled what comes with being the new drum major?
I mean, I think just I've thought about it a lot as I've prepared during the semester for it. I mean, ultimately, I'm just doing it because I really love the band and try to be as involved as possible and just want to give back as much as possible. So everything that comes, I feel like I've just been trying to be as true to myself and to the band as possible. I mean, as I said before, I didn't do it for an image thing. But I'm really glad, honestly, as a side note, with all the questions I've been getting, a lot of people ask, did I do it to be the first female drum major? And I don't know, I've just been trying to project that, I don't think it's a gendered position. I think it should be, male or female. But, yeah, I mean, it is big, but it's something that I really have been wanting to do. So, yeah, I mean, the spotlight is on me, but I don't know. I think I'm doing it for the right reasons, so.
Yeah, and the band was funny. They tweeted out a few things that you were the USA drum major. You are
Right.
not Helen of Troy. What were some of the weird ones?
Trojan Warrior
Yeah.
Princess,
Trojan
Tammy
Warrior.
Trojan. A lot of misconceptions. The drum major is not Tommy Trojan. So
No.
I am not Tammy Trojan. I am the drum major.
All right. And you ride the horse, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah,
Ryan?
No, she doesn't ride the horse.
yeah. No, I don't. Yeah.
Is it stressful? I always think about this when I see the drum majors do this. You walk out to the middle of the field. Basically, the whole Coliseum eyes are on you, and you're being broadcasted on live television, and you have to flip a sword up in the air and try and catch it and stab it. What pressure comes with it? I know you haven't done it yet for real, but what's going through your mind when you're going to do that?
I think a lot of it will just come down to practice. I'll really get that stab down. And we run it a lot in band camp, the whole pregame routine. Honestly, and I feel like sometimes tens of thousands of people are easier than a few hundred. With that many people, it just kind of turns into a faceless crowd.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is there a hierarchy? Do you get to you get an extra pudding cup or something in the band room? Now that you're what do you
Yeah, I
get?
have my own
benefit?
office, and I have someone come in and bring me coffee every day. No, it's
Perfect.
it's really it really is just a student leader. So I mean, we lead the band onto the field and we stab the field, but I mean, we're really just there to represent the band and get everyone hyped up for the game. So we don't really have. I mean, we're up in front of the band, but aside from that, there's no no logistical special treatment really or anything.
All right.
I know a lot of people. I don't know if it was a joke or not, but they wanted to know what's going to happen to your uniform. Do you modify it at all for you?
So we're figuring that out. I want to keep it mostly the same because I know a lot of people have been oh, she should be the Amazon warrior or all that sort of stuff. But I don't think that is consistent with what the image of the drum major should be. So I'm going to try to keep it as traditional as possible. Obviously, I'm probably going to have a little more feminine sandals. I'm trying to work on getting a female breastplate, but it's all up in the air. We're really working it out. It'll be set in stone, really, when I wear it out.
Have you tried the gear on yet?
Yes, and I have pictures of it. I look like a mini fridge. It's really big.
So we have a question on YouTube, but does the gear get hot? Because obviously last year, UNLV, I think a couple years ago, the Western Michigan game,
Western
it was
Michigan.
100 degrees on the field. I mean, Keely and I, we were at Arizona, that it was supposed to be 136 degrees on the field.
Yeah.
So How do you kind of prepare for wearing all that gear? Do you have to do some training, I guess, wearing the gear and getting used to the heat in it?
I'm sure I'll figure that out. I haven't been really warned from the old drum major, besides the fact that just I'm going to sweat a lot and I better wipe it off the armor. It'll tarnish.
Oh.
But I mean, it is brass with a small, like a thin leather lining. And then under that, I think it's a wool tunic. And I know,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, I'm probably just going to wear, like, compression shorts and, like, a tank top or something underneath. But I don't know. I guess I'll see how hot it gets. Maybe I'll have to do some training.
Interesting.
That's pretty crazy. As far as your experience in the band, I know a lot of people hold Dr. Bartner in such a high esteem. What's it like working with someone like him?
Dr. Bartner, I have a lot of respect for him because he has really made the band what it is. And he has a great team that supports him, but he really spearheads it, like getting the funding for the band. He always takes care of his students, He always makes sure we're getting paid, getting fed, we have what we need. He really does it for his students, and I respect him a lot for that. I mean, I know, like, from an outside perspective, like, you see him up on the ladder yelling at us or whatever, and, coming into the band, you might just see that side of him, but really, like, getting to know him and seeing the history that he's, like, what he's done for this program, he really, like, he loves the students that he has.
We get to kind of hear the band, especially so when we cover fall camp in August, and we'll be walking to practice at Howard Jones Field, and usually on at Cromwell, you guys will be practicing, and there's a lot of yelling. There's some expletives and stuff.
There's a lot of.
It seems like it's very like almost like a military indoctrination or whatever. It's like you're sort of like boot camp or whatever.
Yeah, we have like the call and response sort of things, like the words that will trigger like a response. But I think it's mostly just to hype everyone up for the games. Because like if you're in the stands and we have like words in the songs we play, like I think it really just hypes the band up more for like mostly the games, but whatever we're doing.
Yeah, there's other songs. Yeah, my friend, when I was in college, there was all these words to different like opponents fight songs. They would have like the band would have their own versions of that. I'm sure you'd sing your own things. There's some off-color stuff.
Can neither confirm nor deny those statements.
There's some off-color stuff. It's it's not the.
You come hear the band, you make your own opinion.
So as far as your playing days, you mentioned you play the tuba. Are you gonna miss playing the tuba when you're drum major?
I mean, I play the tuba in the music school.
Yeah.
So I'll get enough of that, and we have all these side gigs, and I'll be able to play the tuba for that too. So I mean, I'm sure during the games I'll miss it a little bit, but at least this year, I'm definitely gonna just be focusing on being drum major.
Yeah, and you're going into your junior year, is that right? Mm-hmm. Is that kind of like what the drum major usually is? Are they usually like an upperclassman or sometimes grad students, or how does that normally work?
Usually they're an incoming senior. We have had 2 and even 3-year drum majors in the past, but besides Chris, who did it for 2 years, for the past decade or so, it's just been 1-year drum majors.
Okay, so I don't know why I thought there would be like a longer term for something like that, but yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Like back in the 90s and before then, there were like definitely some longer term drum majors.
Okay.
Some people are like invited back to do it. I think the most is 3. I could be wrong, but yeah, 2 and 3 years. It's not super unusual. It's just been the trend in the past decade.
And then if you're a junior, do you automatically get to do it for your senior year, or they have to vote you back in again?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I have to rerun.
Interesting.
So just don't mess up the spin, and you'll be fine. You know, the stabbing, like just. You get the stab down. They're like, if she have India come back.
Ride the horse a little bit. It'll all be safe.
Jasper Smith on YouTube has a question for you. He says, how much time per week do you have to dedicate to band preparation?
Band preparation? To like drum major?
I think so. Or just before when you did tuba, how much did you had to practice during the week?
So usual band practices are 6 hours during the week and then pretty much all day Saturday. So and then there's like an hour sectional usually in there. You might have to devote some more time if you need to memorize the music, but I'd say like 6 hours a week is generally the standard. And then like Saturday is really just the whole day blocked out for games.
So if it's like a 7:30 p.m. game, what time are you like on? Like what time do you have to start getting ready and all that stuff?
Yeah, so regardless of the time of the game, everyone reports. We have all the different sections have their different reporting places Saturday morning. regardless of the time of the game, we all meet around 6 a.m., 6:30.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like a 7:30 p.m. game, you're meeting at 6:30 in the morning.
Yes.
It's like it's like a lot of people tailgating. Like
Yeah,
they
like
have
a
their set times to
Exactly.
get there. It doesn't matter what time the game is.
Yeah, USC Psycho, like they're always there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
6 a.m. You get 12 hours of drinking in, whatever it is.
Some people tailgate in between too. I don't understand how they do it, but some
Wow.
people they just keep going. But yeah, we meet at 6:30. We have a sectional around 7 to 8. We have a field practice until 9:30, 10, depending, and then we'll get called like 2-3 hours before the game, and we'll start that whole thing. But if it's a late game, we have like a nice break in between. We
Okay.
can just do whatever.
So you have to do the early stuff, then you kind of get a break and then go.
Yeah.
And then the concert. So if you haven't done this is definitely one of the cool things about tailgating on campus is the band does come through. Starting at Heritage Hall, is that where you guys start? Or?
Yeah, we do the big warm up and concert there.
Okay, and then you come right through the middle, Truesdale, I think it is, or right in front of Tommy Trojan. When we used to do our USCFootball.com tailgates, a lot of them are right there next to Tommy Trojan, and one of the benefits
Yeah.
was the band would stop and play, and you could kind of follow them into the Coliseum. So
Yeah,
it's pretty
yeah.
cool. Yeah. Is that something you guys enjoy doing, like on game day?
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do on game day because like late games are nice because you have a break. But even if you're like kind of tired, like going into it, that march to the Coliseum, playing all those rallies, like that, the energy always goes right up. Yeah, I think if we just like showed up at the Coliseum, I don't think it would nearly be as exciting.
And now you get to be up on the ladder, right? You'll be
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah. Interesting. You look at like. What I mean is that are you looking forward to that more or the stabbing? Like what's the most important thing for you? Like what's going to be like the coolest moment? You think?
I mean, I guess that first stab I think will be really cool because there are a lot of people that are like, can she do it? Like, I don't know if a woman can stab the field, and it's like, yes, of course a woman can stab the field, but I mean that first stab I feel like is really like what solidifies the new drum major, and I think that's going to be a really cool moment.
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
I think especially with the Coliseum opening and everything,
Yeah.
it's just going to be like it's Dr. Bartner's 50th year. Like all this thing is kind of like culminating to this one moment, and I think it's going to be
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting year for sure.
yeah. So you're coming at a good time.
Yeah, definitely.
Has there been any kind of detractors in the band, or has anyone been like, oh, I don't know about this or anything, or has everyone been pretty positive?
Nobody in the band really. Everyone's been really supportive. I've noticed like there's some comments on Facebook or whatever, and I don't want to get involved at all, but it's been kind of touching reading my bandmates just like, defending me, being like, of course you can do it, or like, we don't need fans like you anyways.
Yeah,
But
it's weird. I can't imagine someone being like, this is an outrage. What? How? I mean, I don't. It's like,
Yeah.
do you really care? Like, I
I've
don't-
seen like some woman commented even like, gross, I don't want to see a woman stab the field. And I was
Really?
like, who are you advocating for? Like,
Great point. Yeah. I've been monitoring our comments online, and people are getting some bans. So it's people online are just not fun. But
Really,
we do.
we get some negative ones on
Yeah,
this?
people are kind of dumb online. YouTube, I expect more from you. We actually have
Really?
a tweet
I'm like,
oh.
Steve. He says, question, why is it called the drum major? Do you know?
I think traditionally the drum major, they were really like the original marching bands were like a part of the military bands. I don't know like the whole story about it, but I think they were in charge of like protecting the drums or something. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Or like keeping time. I don't know exactly what it is. Yeah, I feel like now it's just been kind of a colloquial term that everyone's just like, the drum major. And it's like, why is it called that? But yeah, I don't know the exact story, but something along those lines.
Cool stuff.
the leader of the band.
The leader of the band. I
Yeah.
mean, we mentioned the hate. How do you handle that? I mean, because I know I get some hate, and I'm just like, oh, how do you? I mean, I'm sure you have way more. How do you handle that?
I mean, the first two comments like that I read, I was kind of like, oh. Like, I thought it was going to be overwhelmingly positive, and it was, but, like, seeing those first two negative comments, I was kind of taken aback, like, oh, there are people that are against this. But, like, afterwards, just, like, the people that were defending me and, like, the people that were against it, like, some of their arguments, I mean, they were really not very sound. So, like, whatever you're going to do, like, there's always going to be people saying you shouldn't, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're used to that. We get a lot of
Yeah.
you can't
It's just if you're in the internet age, if you're just
Right.
at
Yeah.
all, people
Yeah.
are going to be mad online. It just happens.
There was someone, we were getting some Twitter argument with Shotgun. Like he said, we'll talk on the show for like an hour and a half. We'll do podcasts for like, and like if you say one wrong word, they're like all over you and stuff. And you're like, dude, I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like tweeting out, like, you seem like you'd be fun at parties. Like,
I feel like
what-
people forget that like you are people up there, like I am a person. It's not just like I feel like people see it online and they just see the image and like they don't see like that one little slip up. It's like you have to be like inhuman, but
Yeah.
like behind the screen, like everyone's just people,
Yeah, exactly. We had some questions on YouTube. Do you, as a drum major, can you speak your opinion about USC football, or do you have to be like neutral?
I mean, I think that's ultimately up to the drum major's discretion, which is something I'll have to figure out. From now, I'm definitely going from the standpoint of being neutral, just because I haven't even really started yet.
Yeah.
Like everyone in the band has their opinions, obviously. I don't know about like a lot of drum majors in the past what their like presence about USC football was, but yeah, at least for right now, I'm trying to just in most aspects just maintain a pretty neutral disposition.
Nice. Yeah, Shotgun reported that the song girls were like, having some interesting comments before.
Oh, were they? Well,
No,
we took a photo together, so if they wanted to say anything.
No, about you,
no,
about
no.
the football team.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like they're right there. So
They're in there. No, but there's the band. Most of the people in the band are huge football fans. You know?
Yeah.
So if they're, if the team's 5-7, they're probably not all that happy.
Yeah.
You still got to play on and everything. But,
right, exactly. Yeah, at least like however people feel about the team, we always are just like super hyped for whatever they're doing. So
Yeah.
As far as away games go, are there any in particular you're excited to go to this season?
Notre Dame, I think, will be really exciting, especially because they have their first female leprechaun.
Yeah.
I think they just elected.
You guys got to get a picture for sure.
Yeah, something.
Fighting each other.
Yeah, the Notre Dame trip is always fun, but especially as a drum major, I think it'll be a really great experience. And just like as a drum major, I'll be able to go on all the away trips, which is a really great
Oh, okay.
privilege to have. And I think BYU, is going to be interesting. I've never personally been there, so
Provo. It's an interesting city in
Is
itself.
it?
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
So as a tuba player or any band, like if you're talking about going to away games that you don't bring that big of a band, you're obviously not guaranteed a spot. But as a drum major, you're guaranteed a spot.
Yeah, so most of the trips are class trips.
Okay.
And there might be like one, like this year it's gonna be BYU, where it's like it's like a sign up form. Like they see who can do it, and then they just like to pick the people to go on it. But usually, it's the weekender. Everyone goes on. If Chicago is away, everyone goes on it. And then besides freshmen, all the other classes get a trip.
Okay.
And so that'll be the band that goes.
Oh, okay. But you get to go to them all now.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which is a great privilege to have. I'm really excited.
That's
Yeah.
really fun. People on YouTube wanted to know where you're from.
I'm from New Jersey. I grew up in Ohio. Yeah. She's from New Jersey too. Yeah, I
Her
grew
friend Krista's in the studio.
Yeah. Sorry. I grew up in Ohio and then moved to New Jersey. So I usually stay in New Jersey, but then like if someone is like, I'm from the Midwest, I'll be like, oh, me too. And so then it gets confusing.
Nice. Very nice. HR Pickin' Stuff on YouTube wants to know, how many songs does the band have in its catalog?
Oh, we have a lot. I don't know if I could count them off the top of my head. It's like things rotate in and out all the time. I want to say we have like the 3 fight song, like I want to say we have like 5 we always play at every game that are like school songs, like Fanfare, Tribute, Fight On, Conquest. And then we just have like a bunch of rock charts. I don't know. I want to say like around 20, 30. We have so much stuff that we rotate in that we only play at football games or that we play for basketball band, stuff that like we mostly play basketball band, so we don't have memorized, stuff that we like only play at football games, so we aren't even used to reading the music. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff. I can't name the exact number off the top of my head.
Are there new ones that come into the rotation for each football or like certain games or anything or?
Yeah, our assistant director, Jake Fogel, is also our arranger, and he'll just put like stuff in every season. I think we had like Pray For Me was new. I Like It we usually introduce them in like for a certain show, and then if the band likes them enough, then we'll keep them as
Okay.
like just regular stand tunes.
And are you doing basketball games too, or is there a?
No, there's no drum major for that. In the spring, the drum major, like if there are any appearances, it's really just with the marching band.
Okay. Oh,
Interesting. What's your favorite to play?
The song
Yeah.
In the Stone, definitely by
Interesting.
Earth, Wind and Fire. That one, the tuba part is great for that one.
Oh, nice.
Cool. Very nice. Well, do you guys, Ryan, Shotgun, do you have any final questions for India?
No, I mean, this has been really cool for me. It's great to have you. Can we see that sword one more time?
Yeah.
Can I try it? Is it real quick?
Is that illegal?
Unfortunately,
I'm not allowed to touch it
yeah,
on it.
Wow.
nobody besides the drum major.
Pointed at the camera. That was good. Awesome. That's good. That she can only touch it. I like that. That's very,
Yeah, it's a tradition.
That's a very cool quality about that.
That's-
it's
yeah.
nice. So you said it's like 6-7 pounds.
Yeah, about the practice sword. It's just like the weight is okay. It's just the balance with the blade. The game day sword is a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker. So yeah, I thought it was 12 pounds when I was auditioning, which is false.
Nice.
There was an article written about the new sword because we just got a new game day sword a couple of years ago, and there's an article written that said it was 12 pounds. And so I was getting like super ready to doing all this like training.
Curls and stuff.
Yeah, I was like going on runs with like 12-pound weights, and then during the practices, he let us just like, because if you're auditioning to be it, you can like practice with the sword, and he
Okay.
let us hold it. And I was like, this isn't 12 pounds, like, but yeah, it's just about 5 or 6, 7.
So now that you won, like no one in the band can touch the sword. Like you're the only one that can touch the sword.
Yeah, and past drum majors.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
It's
a
like the
tradition,
green jacket.
you know.
It's like the
Yeah.
Masters green jacket or something. Like a past winners, you can wear your green jacket when you go, but only when you're on campus and then during a football game or something. Like you can.
Yeah, but I think it's one of the more special traditions about the position. Like only the drum major can wield the sword, and it's such a big image for the band and the university. I think it's something that's really cool.
Definitely.
Very cool indeed.
You have anything else, Shotgun?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Have
Well,
you learned how to twirl it yet? Have you gotten?
I'm
some
working that
practice?
out. Yeah, because I did the whole routine, like the conducting and everything, and all those twirls. Most of them are really up to the drum major's discretion. Like there have been flashier ones, more straightforward ones. So just all stuff, I'll figure out whatever I want to do.
Just start throwing it up,
Can you
360s
twirls.
So that's
catch
legal.
it
Like,
behind
you
your
can flip
back.
it? Yeah.
Kind of like the baton. I don't.
The twirler?
Twirler.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
of the drum majors in the past have done like really crazy stuff. I mean, my only concern is like, if you drop that sword on camera, yikes.
Yeah.
yeah, that's some stress.
Maybe later in the year when you get a few stabs under your belt, then you can like
I'll do
do
the
some crazier
flip
things.
his ass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Does the drum major hand the player of the game the sword?
Yeah.
Okay, so you get that discretion.
Yeah, so
Oh,
the
I
players
forgot
get the
about
sword
that.
too.
Yeah.
Right,
I
right.
forgot
Yeah,
about
so you
that,
get to. Okay, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
So
I was asking the past drum major about that. I was like, how does it work? And he was like, just get up on the ladder and then you hand it up to them. And I was like, oh. I feel like there would have been like more of a ceremony about
Yeah.
it, but I
Yeah.
guess not.
Like you have to like
Yeah,
Knight them in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jacob Wilson, you have been knighted.
Yeah.
You can now go up and wield the sword.
That's funny. Good stuff. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, India, for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks.
thanks for
Congrats
having
to
me.
you.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
excited to see you out there in 2019.
Yeah, me
Yes.
too.
We need a
I'm
round of
excited.
applause.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
thanks.
That's
Yes,
very good.
yes. Thank you,
Thanks so
thank
much
you.
for coming.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for having me.
Okay, we're gonna take a quick, 30-second break. We'll be back. Just stay tuned.
Cool.
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, if you can hang over here, we'll.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not as hot in here. It's still kind of hot, but
Yeah.
It's better.
Yeah. And then Ryan, just scoot in a little bit.
yeah, I'll do that.
There's a restroom right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where in Ohio?
Between Cleveland and Akron.
So that never.
Can you scoot over a little bit more, Ryan?
Where is the arena?
I'm not sure.
When they tore it down?
But
I went.
Live show day.
My brother lives in Cleveland. I grew up in Cincinnati.
Alrighty, we are back. Sorry for that quick change of scenery.
Quick delay.
Quick delay.
Well, that's pretty cool.
That was really cool. She's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Not just saying that because she's still in the room, right?
No,
like,
no,
You actually
yeah.
think,
Apparently, I didn't mute my mic. I'm sorry that you still heard us for half of that. My bad. I
Oh,
muted
you
theirs, but not mine.
nice.
My bad.
That's all right. A little
So many
behind the
things to do.
scenes.
Yeah, you can hear.
I
some
thought
of
we were
it.
going to do the background shot, but you put up the.
I did.
The
I
picture.
did the background shot afterwards. Ryan.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Very cool.
Gotta criticize me always. Alrighty.
What? It wouldn't be a show if that wasn't the thing.
Yeah, true.
Sorry about the Facebook stuff.
Yeah,
That's
I'm sorry
weird.
about that.
We actually, when we were setting this up and scrambling last minute, I think I kicked the router over, and then maybe that. I don't know, but everything else came back up at Facebook.
Yeah.
Can't take him anywhere.
See, it's Ryan's fault
It's
as
usually
well.
Keely breaking things.
How dare you?
Nice.
But as I talked about at the top of the show, USC got a transfer on Friday. Drew Richmond out of Tennessee. He's a tackle, 6'6", 320. Was a former 4-star prospect when he first came to college, but now he's a redshirt senior, so he'll have one to play one. Guys, what does this mean for the offensive line? It means some added depth and maybe some more competition there?
Yeah, the funny thing, we pull up the 24/7 Sports transfer portal, and there's all these people from USC pointing somewhere else. And this, I saw it when that one popped in. I'm like, oh wait, someone's coming into USC. Like I think that's a big deal. It's first, your first dip into the transfer portal, like actually extracting something instead of putting something in. But he's a big time talent. He started over 20 games for Tennessee every game last year, and then about half the games in 2016 and 2017. We saw in the spring there wasn't a whole lot of offensive line depth. They pretty much went with the 5 starters in there. The spring showcase, you had Frank Martin as starting at left tackle, and Liam Jimmins, who was on the defensive line last year, just a couple months ago, starting at right tackle. So they needed some help there, and I think someone that played in the SEC can come in with a little bit different attitude. I think it's going to help. Will it be the Stevie Tuicolovatu? I haven't had to say that
Not
for
that
a while. But I haven't had to say it for a while. Will it be that kind of? I mean, that was about it. That was about as home run as you get with a grad transfer. But I think him bringing that attitude, I think, is going to help out. And see. And he's someone that he didn't have the greatest career at Tennessee, but there was a lot of potential there. The people I talked to at Tennessee felt you get a little bit of a change of scenery. I think it could be a good thing for Drew. So I think it's definitely a positive for USC on a lot of different fronts.
You get experience. A redshirt senior coming in that you basically have lost all your experience off that line. You have Austin Jackson, who's played a year and a half. You have Andrew Voorhees, who's played about a year. So besides those two guys, you're completely fresh, completely green with your offensive lineman. So bringing him in adds experience to that group. He's a guy that can potentially teach up other guys there. That second group, if there's a big drop-off from the first team offensive line, the second team offensive line, there's nobody really competing for those spots. Now you add him in, you potentially get Clayton Bradley back, potentially get Bernard Shermer in the mix. Now you have some competition. You add that competitive, the fight for those positions. Drew Richmond comes in. He's got to prove himself.
Yeah.
You can look at his tape, and when you're recruiting a guy, you say, yeah, you're coming in to start. Well, they told him that at Tennessee as well. You're going to come in, you're going to start as a freshman. Well, that didn't happen for him. So he said that he learned from that and had to try to figure out, what he was going to take away from, each practice, each game and stuff like that. He said he would go to Twitter and look for kind of validation.
Yeah.
And said, so I think he learned from that experience. So now he's going to come in. He knows he has to win that spot. It's not just going to be given to him, even if USC might have said that during the recruitment, because you say whatever you can to get him on campus. Now you got him on campus. Now he's got to compete and battle for that right tackle spot where we expect him to line up. And then that creates more competition because, Jalen McKenzie's been in that spot.
Yeah.
He's got the number 70. He's taken over Chumandoga's number in his spot. Well, he's not going to want to give up that spot. But if you do move him, if you move Jalen McKenzie, has he just become the backup, or now is he battling for one of those interior spots? Because he played guard last year. You see him battle with Andrew Voorhees. You see him battle with Elijah Vera Tucker. Now you've got competition at potentially 3 different spots. And I think that competition is what that offensive line needs after a spring when the first team group didn't have that.
Yeah.
They had the competition from the defense, but not, from anyone pushing them from behind. There's just no one with any experience on that second team group that was practicing that was going to push them. So I think now just adding Drew Richmond gives another person to push everyone on the line.
Yeah, I think with 2 concerns coming out of spring, you're talking about the secondary just because there wasn't a lot of bodies there. You got walk-ons that were not just on the 2 deep, but really running with the ones because there just wasn't enough people there. And then the offensive line, I like the first group, but you lose 3 veterans from last year's offensive line. It would have been great to see more competition there. Drew's going to bring that in there. So I think that's going to help a lot. And like you said, the experience factor. So all positive, I think, for USC. I know Clay Helton was pretty positive in that final spring practice talking about the offensive line and the way the run game was going. I think it's to be determined as far as can this offensive line go around and push people around. I think they're going to perform better with better coaching from Tim Drevno, and I think the scheme is going to help them out a lot. You got the wider splits, you got the ball coming out a lot quicker, but we don't know yet if this can be a group that, hey, we need to go pick up 3-4 yards on this run, go push somebody around. We don't know that yet, and I think having a Drew Richmond come in, I think will certainly help that.
Yeah, I think it helps that. It adds experience, it adds depth, and he's a guy that's played against some really good players in the SEC.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the first-round draft picks that he potentially played against. And I don't know exactly who he lined up against, but Josh Allen, edge rusher from Kentucky. You got Montez Sweat, edge rusher from Mississippi State. You look in the interior, if he went up against Quinnen Williams, the defensive tackle, if he went up against the defensive tackle from Mississippi State, Jeffrey Simmons, there's at least 4 first-round picks right there that he may have gone up against in the past year.
Yeah.
So he's went up against some really good guys. You know, he's facing the pass rush of Georgia. You know, they've got have had some really good guys the last 2 years. I watched some of his tape against Georgia, just some quickly looked at some tape on him, and he can get a push, you know, something that we haven't seen too much from USC in the last year and a half or so with the offensive line. He was getting a push consistently against some of the Georgia's defensive linemen, but consistency issues. And that's where he fits in perfectly with the rest of this USC offensive line. You know, look good on one play, look bad on the next play. So I think that's going to be the biggest key for that group as a whole. Tim Drevno has to get consistency from the group. Can they block on a consistent basis rather than you'd made 3 really good plays, on a drive. You blocked really well, but on the 4th one, you let a guy by you, and suddenly you blow up an entire drive because of that. And you have to hold him, or what it may be. And also, there's a concern with him about the false starts.
Yeah.
I believe. I was looking up the numbers a little bit ago. I think it was 12 penalties last year. That's kind of similar to what Chuma Edoga had 2 years ago. And Chuma Edoga was jumping a lot. So you got to clean that stuff up. And obviously that's been a big emphasis for USC this offseason.
Right.
And through the spring practices, we'll see how it carries over. How do you kind of attack that during summer PRPs? Can you, when he gets on campus? And then in fall camp, we'll see if there's the impetus on that as well. And if you see the referees back and all that type of stuff, we'll see how USC kind of attacks those things and how they can, go after it with him as well.
Yeah, my guy at Tennessee said that it was very similar, it seemed like, from what he was describing with Drew Richmond. Some inopportune, some penalties that maybe just came at the wrong time. They came in a little bit of bunches. And it did seem similar to a Chuma Edoga. There might be a couple holding calls or a couple false starts, things like that. So, but he was pretty confident that, he's a good kid. He's going to come. He just needed kind of a change of scenery, a change of pace. And, if he comes in there and you're going to fall camp and you got 29 practices and there's Pac-12 refs at every one, you hope that something like that can be, especially the pre-snap penalties. I think USC's done a pretty good job of addressing that in the spring, and we'll see if that's addressed with him and the rest of the team in the fall.
Yeah, it seems like it could be mutually beneficial for both parties. I think for USC, the best case scenario would be a Stevie Tuikulawatu for the O-line, and Drew Richmond gets a fresh start, a new scenery, and that helps him in those penalties, that whole area. But let's get into the NFL Draft.
Real quick,
Yes.
I looked up his penalty stats. He had 12 last year. The ones in parentheses, he had 5. I think 5 were taken back, I think, is the parentheses. I can't remember off the top of my head. But his first 2 seasons at Tennessee, he only had 6 total. So it was a big thing last year, but not an issue before that necessarily.
Okay.
So we'll see if he cleans that up and he can bounce back from that part of his game next season.
Yeah, and that's something that Clay Helton has put an emphasis on during the spring. So I'm sure that if that starts happening in fall camp, that won't fly very well. But going into the NFL Draft, started on Thursday, ended on Saturday. USC had 4 guys drafted. First off for USC was Chuma Edoga. He went to the Jets in the 3rd round as the 92nd pick. Iman Marshall was then picked by the Ravens in the 4th round. Marvel Tell with the Colts in the 5th round, and he's listed as a corner, which is an interesting development. And then Cam Smith with the Vikings in the 5th round. Porter Gustin was not drafted. He was actually signed 2 days later with the Saints, and some other guys were picked up after the draft. Tola Obendon with the Jets, Chris Brown with the Chargers, Malik Dorton with the Raiders, and Ajane Harris with the Eagles. And then Cedric Ware got an invite to the Redskins camp, and Ruben Peters got an invite tied to the Chiefs camp. So not the best.
Ruben Peters, nice.
Yeah, look at that. Not the best draft for USC, especially when you're coming off a year with Sam Darnold the year prior. What did you guys take away from the draft as a whole, and especially about the whole Porter Gustin development that happened last week?
Yeah, it wasn't a good West Coast draft overall. Last year having like Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen and a lot more first rounders. Washington did pretty well. Utah did all right. For USC, keeping that the most players drafted, number of 509 total players drafted, that's a good thing. Now Ohio State ties USC as far as the most first-round draft picks, and we're not seeing, maybe a Michael Pittman goes in the first round next year. We're not seeing like that really changing anytime soon. So I know some of the fans at USC were pretty negative, but it kind of went the way we thought. We weren't really sure about Porter Gustin if he was going to get drafted or not. We thought Chuma, you thought maybe a second. I thought third round was going to be his.
I said he could bump up to the second potentially.
Yeah, you were like, oh, he could be a first round. No,
I did not.
But he kind of went where you thought it would go, which is good. I mean, he did a really good job at the Senior Bowl. I think he had a good combine and pro day and stuff. So I think that certainly helped. And seeing Marvell Tell moving to corner, which I didn't really see much in college. We talked more about Iman Marshall maybe switching to safety. But they listed him as a cornerback right on the Colts website. So right away, that's what they ended up doing. I don't know what that shows about what USC was doing, that the NFL said, oh, he'd be better at this than that. But I think about the way we thought it would go.
Well, Keely brought up a really good point on our podcast, the Family Feud podcast. You'll check it out later.
Plug.
47 minutes before you plug that show. Wow.
Well, I was gonna just start with it, but I figured I'd wait a little.
You haven't mentioned college baseball or hoops yet.
There was a college baseball chance because of Jeremiah. Jeremiah mentioned Andre Agassi. Andre Agassi's kid is actually committed to USC, and they think he could be up to 95, 97
as a baseball player
next year.
Interesting.
And we'll see if he ends up on campus or not. He might get drafted. But to bring up back to the Family Feud podcast, Keely brought up an interesting point about the Colts and their defense. Keely, talking about how the Colts defense might play into Marvell Tell being a cornerback.
Oh yeah, I just mentioned that the Colts go more with the zone defense, so it's not. I don't think you'd want Marvell Tell to be in a man-to-man coverage for as a cornerback, but his length kind of helps him in a zone-like defense, and that was the point I made on the Family Feud podcast.
Yeah. I tried to look up the guys that got drafted, who was on the active roster. Now there's still free agency and there's a lot of stuff going on. Marvell Tell's situation looked, I don't want to say the most dire, but they had a lot of defensive backs. I believe there was already 14 defensive backs, or he might have been the 14th, like 7 corners and 7 safeties already. So that was interesting. I think with Iman Marshall, I believe there was a whole bunch of safeties and not as many corners. So maybe that's somewhere switches too, if I remember that correctly. But there was a lot of dudes on the Colts already. They already have a pretty stacked secondary.
So the question becomes, maybe Marvell Tell, because of his versatility, you see him as a guy that can help you eliminate some of those numbers. Like, hey, we got a bunch of guys, and they all do one thing really good, but maybe Marvell Tell, he's so versatile, and he can do different things. We can get rid of these 2 guys, and he can be the backup for this position. Or potentially he's a guy that you can teach him at different positions because he's played that slot position as a nickel safety in USC's defense with Chris Hawkins and Leon McQuay. Maybe you can line him up over the top if you want. And then if you put him as a nickel safety, you potentially then have an extra run defender there. He can cover guys that are coming out of the backfield or guys in the slot. I think that's maybe where you're looking at him as a cornerback necessarily rather than the outside position. Maybe that's what they're looking at. It's going to be, I think it's kind of a wait and see situation with them. We have to wait and see what they do in the mini camps and practice to find out for sure. I think Iman Marshall, great fit for him going to Baltimore. They love physicality there.
Yeah.
That's been one of their trademarks, from Ray Lewis and, Elodie Nada and all those guys on that defense. Him coming in, I think they like physical corners too, so maybe that lends better for him. And I think Chuma Doga ended up in a good spot because you look at their roster and you see they only drafted him, I think. I'll have to look up in a minute.
I don't think they drafted another offensive line. They signed Toa Lobendon, and I don't remember if they signed another offensive line. Last time I checked, they had not. So it seemed like a good situation for him.
And their 2 starting tackles right now their contracts are both up after this year. So if they don't sign one of those, maybe Chuma can produce enough this year, can show them, hey, I'm the tackle of the future. They can groom him for a year and then have him become Sam Darnold's protector on one side or the other. After the season, they let one of those guys that are more expensive go in free agency, and they leave Chuma Doga at one of those starting spots.
Yeah, he's talented. I mean, he was a 5-star for a reason. We just felt like for whatever reason, coaching, whatever, he just didn't really play up to that potential. But you saw a lot more of that potential, especially at the Senior Bowl. A lot of the scouts just really loved what they saw there, and they're like, "Hey, this guy can be an NFL talent." So he's going to get, I think, a really good job with the Jets, a shot with the Jets, and being a third-round pick, I think you're going to be a little bit more protected too. So it's a little tougher when you're a fifth-round pick. You really got to show something.
With him, it's all about consistency. It's just being a consistent, playing 60, 70, 80 plays at the same level, rather than 50 plays really strong and 20 or 10 and then 10 bad, because you're just not focused, not going at it. And Clay said that probably leading into Chuma's into his junior year when he was taking over for Zach Banner and Chad Wheeler, is just getting that consistency, getting 70 plays out of him instead of 50 or 55. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for him. If he does that, the sky's the limit for him. Yeah. He's super athletic. He's not as tall as you want for a tackle, but he's got super long arms, so he can, he defends like a 6'5", 6'6" tackle because of his wingspan. So, and I look up their draft, and he's one of two offensive players that they took. So they took a tight end as well in the round after him, but he's the only offensive lineman, so it tells you that they're going to give him opportunities. He's going to have chances. I think he can come in, and by next year, I think he could be a starter.
And, if you have to block for Le'Veon Bell, it's probably not that hard, right? You just give a little bit of space, and he's running. But, they didn't help out Sam Darnold a whole lot with the draft, I guess. But, free agency, you give him like one of the best running backs in the league, if not the best one. That's probably a good.
And their defense is going to be nasty with the
it
Williams boys
good.
in the middle.
Yeah, it's not, you got to play the Patriots twice, but I think it'll be interesting. They got the game with the Browns and Baker Mayfield and stuff, so that should be fun. I think that might be a Monday night game. I'm not sure, but check it out.
I don't know the Jets' schedule off the top of my head.
Did you not do
You're
prep
get
for the
angry
show?
Tweets
they did have four. They do have 4 USC players now technically on the roster. So
yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, Deontay Burnett's there, Leonard Williams. See if Toe Lobendon gets a shot. He'll probably play guard or something. I don't think he's going to play center.
We have a question on YouTube from Joey DeLuca. He says, is the fact that our top guys were drafted to other positions than what they played at USC, does that show that our coaches are bad at understanding player development and positioning?
Joey, man, it's coming in hot.
You only have one player. It's not like Marvell Tell and Imar Marshall were both switched. Tell is listed on the NFL website as safety, so I know the Colts may have announced him as that, but I don't know exactly how it works. I know in MLB, you actually draft a person. You say what position you're drafting them at, because sometimes you have two-way guys or whatever it may be. So we'll see how they actually use these players. Chuma is drafted as a tackle. He was a tackle. Iman's drafted as a cornerback. The only one is Marvell. So I don't think it's like there's a whole list of guys that are all out of position or anything. The question is with Marvell Tell and Biggie and seeing how they can perform at the next level. And sometimes it's you get moved and that guy's going to be at this different position at the next level. Those two, we didn't necessarily know that. Imar Marshall, there was always the debate about him playing safety versus cornerback.
Yeah.
So I don't think, and maybe you say, well, those guys are better fitted for cornerback or safety at this level, and then maybe they'll move at the next level. It's kind of the Deion Bailey situation.
Yeah.
Remember Deion Bailey moved from linebacker to safety back to linebacker, or moved from safety to linebacker with Clancy Pendergast, and it was like, why would you make that? Well, he fits in this defense at safety. Or a linebacker, but at the next level, he'd have to play safety if he wanted to make a team. Or Sua Craven, similar, from safety to linebacker, and that ended up happening to him at the next level as well. So sometimes you got to put players in the best position to win for your team, and sometimes you got to put them in the best position for them. And how do you balance that? That's part of coaching that can be tough.
Yeah.
When you're trying to win a certain amount of games or trying to develop guys to get them to the next level. Which one are you trying to do? How do you do both of those?
Yeah, I believe Tell was at Crespi. He was a safety too, because I went to some of his games and stuff. But Iman Marshall at Long Beach Poly, everyone always talked about he's 6'2" or whatever. He's like 200 pounds. Like, oh, he should be a safety, and he always talked about not doing that. So we'll see. They still could switch him, but
And one of my favorite matchups watching was Marvell Tell versus Imam Marshall in high school. I watched that game.
That
so
was good. Yeah.
Marvell was playing wide receiver, and I asked him about. He basically shut down Marvell, which is not too unexpected now when you look back on it, because he was a safety. But it's like, what was it like to when you go up against a guy like this and you shut him down? He's like, I'm the best. I'm the best.
Biggie said that.
Yes.
Yeah, that was in the playoffs, right? They played in the play. I think I was at that game too.
I don't
Or
know.
maybe it wasn't.
It was late in the season, at least. I'm not sure if it was playoffs or not. I don't think it was.
The old high school covering football stuff.
TBT.
Yeah.
Were you guys surprised about what happened with Porter Gustin and how that all evolved?
I think I said last week on the show, if he doesn't get drafted, then it probably has something to do with the drug test. It was an Adderall thing, according to his agent, but like we said, the NFL doesn't announce what was failed. So I think piled on with the injury issues were certainly something that was there. I know one of the analysts I talked to that maybe the penalties and stuff that a couple getting targeted. I don't think that's that big of a deal. It really was the concern about injuries and then whatever the test that was failed. I think he landed in a pretty good spot in New Orleans, and it's his Instagram post where he comes out and we don't know exactly what it means, but it sounds like he's going to come out and kind of it's like a rebirth for him. So I think he's going to have a really good shot there. But if there was something with the drug test, I felt he wasn't going to get drafted. He wasn't, so that would be my guess. I don't know for sure.
So the interesting thing is the Instagram post that he put out afterwards, and about trying to get back, basically trying to get back quicker than he should, and the injuries, and how he's always been a warrior. He's always tried to play through if he thought he could help his team better, and how that hurt him. So I don't know if that plays into the drug test and him getting back necessarily, but I think him looking back on his USC career, I think he realizes I rushed back from these injuries and pushed myself, and that can be tough for a guy that's used to being able to work on himself, work on his body more and more to improve versus you got to let things heal and sitting around and not doing something, and sometimes that's hard. But I think he realizes now how to kind of attack things like that. So we'll see how much of an opportunity he gets with the Saints. I don't know about their defense and exactly how they line up or how they want to use him, because I've heard it's a 4-3.
It's not really his.
It's not his forte.
No.
That means he would have to be hand on the ground defensive end, or you back him up and use him in space more as an outside. I thought he fit much better as a 3-4 outside linebacker. Coming off the weak side to kind of get to the quarterback. We'll see what they're doing. I haven't looked into their defense enough to have that. It's on my research list. So we'll see. I'll try to do some research and get back to you guys on that one for next week, but we'll see how he fits in and where they're trying to put him. If they release a depth chart or anything going into the mini camps, or where they're listing him at, that type of thing. Try to reach out to him too and see just what they kind of what the opinion is on him there.
Yeah, there was some head scratching stuff with him. I mean, that one time when he had screws inserted into his foot and he played 4 days later, like that didn't make any sense. Like on any level, you just do like, why would he be playing at all? And so I think he's probably made some mistakes for sure. I think he would admit that. I think USC made some mistakes as far as where they were using him and stuff. So, for whatever reason, it didn't work out. But he's going to get a fresh start in the NFL. We'll check in to see. Yeah, if it is really a pure 4-3, it's going to be a little bit tougher for him for that. But I don't know if they would sign him if they, if that's all they were going to do. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see indeed. Any other final NFL draft thoughts before we move on to other questions that people have for us?
A guy like Ajene Harris. I think that's a guy I watch as an undrafted free agent. I know there was I think 4 or 5 of those guys that were signed that will give opportunities. He's a guy to keep your eye on. And you may not see him play at all this season, but he might make a practice squad and then work his way up. He's going to try to follow the lead of Nickel Roby-Coleman, who was also an undrafted free agent, who got his chance with Buffalo and made the most of it. We'll see if Ajene can make the most of his opportunity in Philadelphia.
Yeah, when you can play special teams, and Ajene can definitely do that, you can make a roster. I mean, you're talking about a 53-man roster. You have to have people that are versatile at the bottom, and he's a guy that can be that. So I agree with Shotgun. I think he's someone that might sneak in. Remember, he came in when he came out of he's
high school out of Crenshaw.
Yeah,
quarterback.
Crenshaw. Played quarterback and cornerback and played all kinds of special team stuff. Comes into summer workouts and was playing wide receiver. He hadn't played since 7th grade and was like crushing it out there. So he's a kid that can come in and do some great things. So I agree with that. That's a good take, Shotgun.
Yeah, definitely work ethic is strong with him. But moving on to a different question, we have a question from John Goins. He says, can Graham Harrell incorporate a power run game with the air raid offense, especially since his running backs are in the 225-pound range?
I think it's going to depend on the offensive line somewhat. I mean, I don't think you're going to see them line up with 2 tight ends like a Stanford or something. And
3 tight ends and a fullback?
3, yeah, you're probably not going to see that. But I think they can still run the football with authority, and I think he likes to do that. He ran the ball 48% of the time last year at North Texas. But it's not going to be the ogre package you see from Stanford or anything like that. But I feel like it's going to depend more on the offensive line. Clay Helton was praising it, like I said, at the end of spring, but I don't think we've seen enough of that. I think they're going to be able to pass protect pretty well. I think the scheme is going to help them. But can they push someone off the ball? Do we see the goal line situations where they're just going to power through? I don't know. It's TBD. I think they have the running back to do it. I think there's enough talent on the offensive line. I just haven't seen it kind of work yet.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on how the offensive line does, and then what they see out of those running backs. Can they do everything they want to do in the air raid offense and the way they normally run the ball? And do they, if they can, do they start adding extra dimensions? Okay, well, now we can line up and do this with this guy because he's heavier. And Mike Jinks talked about how he never had a running back as heavy as the guys are now. He said, I've never had a guy 220 to 225 pounds, and then claimed that all the running backs were basically that, all three of his scholarship guys. So, and then he was super surprised at how well they moved, how agile they were. So I think that they are going to earn their extra opportunities and earn those potential extra packages and stuff like that. I think those will be things that will earn from the running backs if they show they can do all the things they want to do initially.
Cool. Anyway, so we're at the top of the hour. Let's go like another 10, 15, and we
Sure.
got we're gonna do like a group dinner after this, so we're gonna like get out of here, get out of your hair. We don't want India waiting around, she's bored listening to us to talk about the football.
No, we actually have a comment that I missed earlier when she was on the show. Tony says, having a 7-year-old daughter changes your perspective on everything. I can't wait for the first game with my daughter and watching India bring the sword down. Can't wait to see my daughter's face. So that's really adorable.
Oh, what a jerk that guy. Oh, no, that's very nice. That's very cool.
What an adorable comment.
I think there's going to be a lot of that from,
Yeah.
Like when we saw Keely in her football uniform, I remember we put that up on the show.
God, yes.
She's inspired by something. I think there's going to be a lot of little girls that'll be inspired by India, which is cool.
Cool stuff indeed. LDR says, does USC have the fastest team in college football? ITS, Dorian Hewitt, Keenan Kristen, Adonis Oti, Trey Davis, Dominic Davis, just to name a few.
No.
I'm just going to assume that USC is not the very top of anything in the NCAA. It's hard to be the best or the fastest or the strongest. It's hard to be that single thing of anything, especially when there's Alabama and Clemson out there.
Yeah,
True. Very true.
You've seen them play, right? Like there's a lot of fast dudes around. People throw that around like USC's got the best wide receivers in the country. I'm like, well, do you even know what the other wide receivers in the country are like? I think USC, like of any group, you have a pretty good shot. Like the guys that they have, a bunch of 5-star guys. I think a lot of guys are going to play in the NFL. I think, okay, that's kind of legit. But to say like they're the fastest team, no.
So let me look at something real quick. Going back to the run game question, I looked up some stats on Pro Football Focus where they break down the direction of the runs. So there's middle left and middle right, which is off the center to each side. North Texas last year actually ran for almost 12 yards a carry middle left and 6 yards a carry middle right. So, you're getting 8-9 yards a carry while running straight up the middle. So that tells you that they can run the ball up the middle, that they're going to spread guys out.
Yeah.
And, the running may not be quote-unquote power as far as putting a fullback back there, but they're still going to run the ball between the tackles. Actually, looking at their stats, they're much better, North Texas was last year, running between the tackles than they were outside. They actually struggled running the ball outside to an extent.
And I think much better than USC did last year. So.
Most teams did.
Right.
You mentioned wide receivers, Ryan, and it jogged my memory on something. Kyle Ford, the 4-star signee for USC.
Oh, yes.
He announced on Twitter that he's cleared now, coming off an ACL injury. It seems a little bit earlier than scheduled. How much is that an addition for USC to have Kyle Ford on the mend?
I think with the guys in the transfer portal, like if those guys didn't enter the transfer portal, they probably wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But seeing only like 4 or 5 scholarship wide receivers, I mean, John Jackson emerging in the spring, I think that was a positive. You might need a little bit of Kyle Ford because you would like to see how many receivers did he have in the roster in his rosters before he like 16 or
18, I think is what
JT
JT Daniels said.
Ridiculous amount of wide receivers that you would like to have, and Kyle Ford's an absolute stud. Watching him in Dallas at the opening. The most dominating performance I've ever seen from like a 7-on-7 tournament, like a 2-day tournament. I think he had 18 touchdown catches. Like he was absolutely crushing it. He's a special talent, and I think getting him in the mix somewhere, you do have the top end guys, but they're going to play a lot of receivers. So if he can come back and he's really cleared, we've seen guys get cleared and they don't get cleared for contact for months and stuff afterwards. But if he's got a real shot this fall, I think that's going to be a big help. And Amon-Ra St. Brown's great. Tyler Vaughn's, Michael Pittman. We've seen some really good things from Devin Williams. But getting him in the mix, I think, could only help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that his addition, and he said he was cleared. We don't know exactly what he was cleared for. Probably just getting out on the field and be able to run and make some cuts and stuff. But it's a great step. Him and Max Williams both have made some really big strides in their recoveries that makes it look like they may be able to play this upcoming season. When you see the injuries and the timing of them, it's like it becomes a question, because normally ACL injuries they're now a 9 to 12 month, but it's really 12 to 14 months to get back to full speed and full cuts and everything. So, with Kyle Ford, it was in November when he got injured, I believe, or late October. It was later in the season, whereas Max Williams was one of the first games. So he said, oh, well, Max Williams, maybe he comes back. We'll see if he's back full strength. Kyle Ford is like, nah, I don't know that's going to happen. But I think both of those guys are advanced in their recovery, so we'll see when they get to fall camp how much they're able to do then, and whether or not it becomes a Solomon Tuliaupupu type of situation where we think someone's coming back and it doesn't happen, and we're waiting and waiting and waiting a little bit more. So we'll see how that actually goes.
Yeah, it might be cleared for lifting. It might be cleared, maybe he was like lactose intolerant. He was cleared to have yogurt again. I don't know, something like that, but we'll see.
Got the food analogy.
Yeah, got the food
I don't know,
analogy.
it's not really an analogy, but
You
it's
got
kinda,
it in there.
Yeah.
Shotgun, Michael Ford has a take for you specifically. He says, Shotgun.
Which is interesting that he has this for me.
I know,
But go
because you've never really spoken on
I'm
this
going
topic.
to take a break.
He says,
About
Shotgun, real talk. What's up with Reggie Bush? Why does he still talk like he's a champion and Heisman Trophy winner? Does he not own the fact that he cheated and cost our program real consequences?
I think he owns that fact by the nature of he has stayed away from the program. He's not really contested the fact that he has been basically banned from USC. So I think he's owned it. Why does he still talk like he's a champion, Heisman Trophy winner? Because he did win a national championship and he did win a Heisman Trophy. Now he gave a it's like you get a diploma, and you give it back to him. You still got the education.
Yeah.
You're not taking that away from him. It's just a receipt. That trophy that he gave back, it was just a receipt of all those terrific plays and amazing.
Those still happened.
Yeah.
We saw that.
You can't erase those from my memory.
No.
So he's still that's true. What's up with him? He got a new job, and now he's covering college football. So now people are asking him more college questions, and it has come up. The question of, okay, well, what happens when Fox has him do a USC game? Is he going to be allowed to come to practice?
That's a legit question.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we don't really know the answers. I mean, Keely brings up every time we've talked about this, the ruling from Judge Schaller that, the show cause penalty is illegal in California. So if it's kind of extrapolate. It's not true show cause to Reggie Bush, but you extrapolate that. Are you telling him he can't work? Because that's basically what the NCAA would be doing if they say, no, you can't go to USC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check the show last week. I went on the super rant about Reggie Bush. I think it was
Ryan's
pretty good.
rants.
Which is why I'm kind of curious why that was thrown at me.
Yeah, it seems
maybe they
like
already
more-
know your
So I
rant.
ranted.
They just want
I
to
ran-
see
I
my
ranted
opinion
last
on it too.
True.
We have a couple Periscope things real
Go
quick.
for
This
it.
one's really important from Chris969. Has Ryan lost weight? Looks fantastic. What's your secret? Like, that's legit.
Ryan, we found your burner account.
Is that? I can't. I'm right here. I did. I still eat like crap, but I work out in the morning. So that's the only thing. So I've lost like 20 pounds. It's been pretty good. We got one. Could you guys talk a little bit about Bryce Young and what makes him so highly touted? So one of 3 USC 2020 commits, the 5-star Bryce Young. I don't know if you guys both talked to him fairly recently, right? Or
Yeah.
I talked to him in February.
yeah. Some people say remind him of like a Kyler Murray a little bit.
I would say Kyler Murray light at this stage in his career. He's got to add some weight. I mean, the difference in Kyler Murray just being drafted versus looking at Bryce Young right now is it's definitely the physicality of their bodies. I think that Bryce Young has some good arm strength. He's elusive in the pocket, and when things break down, he can create things. You saw several times last year from Mater Day looking for targets, and he had really good receivers. So he's looking to throw the ball. He's not looking to run first. He's a throw-first quarterback, but when things break down, he can make a guy miss in the pocket, and then he can make some magical things happen out in the open field that not a lot of quarterbacks can do. So he keeps plays alive. He's got a touch of that Sam Darnold. He's got a touch of that Kyler Murray. I don't want to put him in that same class yet, but to a lighter extent, and that's why he's got the 5-star ranking. But because he can throw the ball too. He can drill the ball in there on the seam routes. He can do some different things. He's not just a runner that's playing the quarterback position. He's a quarterback that can also give you some different things when plays break down.
Yeah. We got one more quick one on Periscope. It's all one on the interior line. How's the defensive offensive lines coming along? I like the new defensive line coach. I think defensive line is deep. I like the way they've been playing. A lot of the guys lost some weight. They came in and like, hey, we want to get guys quicker. I think that's going to be good. Like we talked about earlier, the offensive line I think is still a work in progress. Nice addition. with Drew coming in there. But, I think that's still a TBD. We'll have to probably wait to the fall. But I feel pretty good about the defensive line. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the defense line is one of the areas where you're most confident in the team going forward. I mean, obviously, you look at Marlon Tuipulotu and Jay Tufele; those guys are starting to break out. Last year, I think Jay Tufele is going to be really good rushing the passer this year. But Brandon Peely, he was a guy that had a sophomore slump. Clay Helton said it. They said they saw it and they talked to him about it. He had a really good spring. And then I think you add in guys like Jacob Lichtenstein, you Nick Figueroa in there as a junior college transfer. If you get Caleb Tremblay back, if you get Trevor Trout back, you just have a lot more bodies and depth there, but the top end is really good too. So
Yeah.
it's not just bodies, it's not just depth, and it's not just the top end guys like you have at some other positions. It's the combination, which USC doesn't have in a lot of other positions.
Yeah.
So that's why I think you're most confident in that group. And from everything that we've heard from Chad K, it has come from, it seemed a positive. He's adding a positive element to the defense line.
Yeah, don't sleep on Christian Rector. I think he's going to have a big year. Back in the quarterback. You forget about him.
Yeah, I forget about him because we could never talk to him this year
Yeah.
during
Oh.
spring because he had classes on Thursday, so when the
Right.
defense was talking. But also, he's kind of that hybrid guy because he played Porter's position, so I
Yeah.
sometimes think of him on the outside linebackers. But, yeah, I think he's going to have a big year. I think he got a ton of pressures last year, but wasn't able to get the quarterback down. I think that's been something that he's going to focus on all season, and those – at least half of those plays where he was, had his hands on the quarterback and couldn't pull him down, he's going to pull him down this year.
Get those sticky gloves, like the receivers use. And just
He's got to go
just
old
attach
school
to 'em,
70s
pull
and
'em
get
down.
some stick 'em,
Those gloves are ridiculous, though. Like when you go to the 7-on-7 tournaments, like they sticking to the ball, just sticking to him. Like I got one hand catch with that. We only got a couple minutes.
now
so
I see why they
do we got a lot left? Or
I know. I think we're pretty good.
Oh, good.
Shotgun, are there any rapid fire that I missed? I don't think I did. It's hard. We didn't get Facebook up and running. Sorry about that
yeah.
to those who.
Well, I will take the. So if you're watching this on Facebook, it's because I took the YouTube video and I will upload it to Facebook for you guys.
Yeah,
so we're
hello,
sorry.
Facebook. Sorry about
And
that.
this is the day I promoted a whole bunch of the Facebook stuff because India was coming in, and then the Facebook one didn't work. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're only broadcasting on 2 channels at once instead
Only
of
2
3.
instead of
so.
3.
Yeah.
Only. HR Picking Stuff says Ryan's haircut looks good. So while there was a lot of hate on YouTube today, Ryan, you're getting the most
My
love.
haircut's been a while, but I guess it was a good haircut. I don't know.
Apparently so.
That was 3 weeks ago, though.
Yep.
Anyways, how many juniors after the season will declare for the league?
For USC, we talked about this before. I don't know
Yeah.
if there's going to be a bunch. There was none this year for the first time in a long time. I think we were looking
Which is
at it.
actually probably a good thing. Just because looking at the numbers, I think the number is now 30% of guys that go out early are not getting
They don't even
drafted.
get drafted. Yeah, so I think it was
Or
smart.
30% are getting drafted.
No, I think it's
Not
aren't.
getting drafted,
Yeah.
okay. So
So like a
30%.
Stephen Carr, there's a possibility there, depending on how big of a year he has. Like a Josh Follow, people look NFL scouts have told me but yeah, he hasn't had any kind of production. But if he has some
know.
kind of big,
There's 2 names, Austin Jackson and Jay Tufele. Those are the
Okay.
2
Yeah.
that I think are the potential. Have a little track record and can add to it and potentially go. Stephen Carr is kind of a wild card because
you said he was going to win the Heisman this year. So.
I said that 3
So
years
if he
ago,
does
and I'm
that-
not going to back down from something I said 3 years
you
ago.
have to say that he's going to leave early for the NFL because he's going to win the Heisman.
Bryce Love was second. He came back.
That's true. But he was all bagged up. And he ended up being a 4th-round pick. He probably shouldn't have came back. But.
Well, if he didn't tear his ACL in the last game, I think his draft stock doesn't slide as much as it
Yeah.
did.
Oh, they really tear it in the last game?
His last carry, collegiate carry was.
Oh, I didn't.
And it was in the last minute of the game. So
Yeah,
it
he was so
Yeah.
banged up and stuff. You feel bad like that. I think
Yeah.
he's going to have, a year from now, he'll still be doing. He'll be all right.
Yep. We have a Twitter question, actually.
Cool.
Brett
What's up,
says,
Twitter?
how many games does Coach Helton need to win the season in order to keep his job? Also, do you think that Lynn Swan will be gone July 1st with Carol Folt coming in?
Good questions. I don't think July 1st she's going to walk in and fire
Yeah,
Lynn
I was
Swan.
about to say, I'll take the second one because I think that was a definite no. He's going to still be here.
Now, it might happen. I'm not saying it could, it could be July. Dan's saying July 2nd, maybe. I don't think it's going to be day one.
Dan's here as well.
I think it goes up, there's a non-zero chance that happens after day one. I don't think it's going to happen.
If you would have asked August 1st, that makes it a much tougher question.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But I still think he would still be there. I think he'll at least get a year there. I don't think there's going to be initial just come in and make a lot of fire. We'll see though.
Yeah. The game thing is very hard because if you would have said last year, a year ago, hey, USC goes 5-7, is Clay Helton still around? You'd be like, no, he's going to be gone. Well, he's still there. So you don't really. I really feel though, without winning the Pac-12 South, his job is in serious jeopardy. And the first 6-game stretch, because it's difficult, if you're talking about like a 2-4 out of the gate with all the hype with Graham Harrell, and you got India doing the German, there's all this, the Coliseum and everything. If they start off 2-4, I think there's a real possibility that he gets fired midseason.
So
But we don't even know if Lynn Swan would be the athletic director at the time. If it's a new athletic director, they could make that change. I mean, there's
a lot
so
of
much.
variables.
There's a lot
This is
of
why I
variables.
don't like hypothetical questions.
It's very
Yeah.
tough.
This is why I don't like trying to figure out who the next head coach is, because there's still currently someone in
Right.
that position.
Yeah, Reggie Bush didn't get that memo about that.
Reggie Bush is saying Urban Meyer. Yeah.
He said if, then we'll start recruiting.
I think we talk about this on we talked about this on the podcast. I'll plug our podcast with Dan and Keely. So my analogy was, it's sort of like last spring when you had Matt Fink and Jack Sears, playing quarterback and competing for the job. But who's there watching them? JT Daniels is there with his backpack overseeing the whole time. Now you have Urban Meyer in Los Angeles while Clay Helton's trying to get out of the gate with a whole new staff and new schemes and a really tough schedule to start things. And Urban Meyer's just sitting there, down the freeway, analyzing what's going on. And he's just waiting there. And Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart said, hey, he should be the next USC head coach. So he's going to have to look over his shoulder a little bit because you got Urban Meyer in the same town. You don't like that analogy? You're not like...
He's out on Urban Meyer.
You're not Urban Meyer. I'm not saying, there's some moral issues and stuff there. But he's like there's not that many coaches that are alive that have won a national championship that could still coach again. He is one of them, one of a handful. So the fact that he doesn't have a job and he will be in Los Angeles and you have the coach on the hottest of hot seats, you cannot not make that connection.
There's currently, 2 coaches in college football that have won national championships?
Dabo and
Nick
Saban, right?
That's it, right? Is Chizik
No,
back in?
no, you have the Texas A&M coach. Why am I blanking on his name?
Oh, Jimbo Fisher.
Jimbo Fisher won.
I forgot about him, but he's not in the
Yeah.
same position. So yeah, I got
It's
maybe that's why I
different,
forgot.
at a different place and stuff. So it's just really not that many. It's really rare to have one. So you have Urban Meyer without a job. It was a chance to win, a national championship at 3 different programs. No one's ever done that. You can't beat Saban with the total numbers, but if you've done it at 3 different spots, you got your own little, notch up there.
If USC were to have a opening, if Clay Helton were to leave for another job or be fired or whatever, it's
I like the
not.
way you put that. That was
it's
good.
not that easy to just go out and get somebody. If you want to look at what at the LA Times, Ben Bolch did a really nice job with UCLA's men's basketball search and how they went through it and how many people turned it down for different reasons, but how many different candidates they went through to get to Mick Cronin there. And it shows you that it's not as easy as just saying, well, they like John Calipari. They offered John Calipari a ton of money. They were giving Jay Wright twice as much money as he has at Villanova. And they said no.
Yeah.
It's not just like, well, just go get Nick Saban. He's the best. Just go get him. Why was Nick Saban going to come over here? Those are the things I think that fans forget. Why is Urban Meyer going to come in? Is he going to get, if there was an opening, is he going to get the control that he wants? That's a big question. Are you going to give him the same amount of money that he wants that he got at Ohio State? They're not paying Clay Helton that. So there's a lot of factors in there. You can't just be like, oh yeah, they'll just get Urban Meyer.
Right.
Duh.
I mean, it would obviously make the most sense, but USC has made what's the opposite of making the most sense. That's what when they comes to hiring, they've been awful at it, really, really bad. So this is a chance to make hit a home run where you're getting a guy who's really good at his job, has won a national championship, is proven. But it would take a lot of changes inside the athletic department to even make that kind of move. If like you said, Clay Helton leaves for another job or gets fired, I like the way you put that. Would USC even go after the obvious choice? Like the past administrations, they would not. Is it going to be a different administration? We don't know. There's so many different factors.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables. But Ryan, to go back to something you said earlier, you said a mid-season firing. Do you think USC would actually go through with another mid-season firing?
Why not?
I do.
Because that's 3.
That would be 3
back
in a
to
row.
back.
You've hired 3 former football players, athletic director in a row. You could fire 3 head coaches
I guess
in the
so.
middle of the season.
It's just kind of the norm now, though. If you don't like the way your program's going, that has become the norm.
Right.
It used to be like, we'll wait it out to the end of the year. But now it's become more of the norm. You just make the move.
And why does that happen? So with Sark, that was obviously off the field stuff
Yes.
that you were, unforeseen or maybe should have been foreseen. But with Lane Kiffin, it would be very similar with Clay Helton because many people thought he should have been fired after his, the season and then wasn't. So you made a mistake early, and now you have to double down and make another mistake. You do the tarmac thing with Kiffin, and you bring Clay back, and then you would have to fire him midseason if it's like 2-4. I'm not saying 4-2 or 3-3, they're going to fire. But if they're 2-4 after 6 games, I think it's. For whatever reason, my gut says Lynn Swann did not want to fire him last season, no matter what. But this season, again, this is just my feeling on the thing, is that all bets are off. That it's now on the table that he could be, but he was going to not. There was no way he was going to fire him last year, which we didn't really know that. But then you kind of see everything that happened. He wasn't going to do it. I think he will now. So if it's a really horrible start to the season, I think that's still in play.
Interesting.
One correction: Mac Brown is now back. So there's another
Mac
national
Brown.
championship.
True.
Forgot about that.
Shouts to
Yeah, and
someone said
he's
on the
recruiting
YouTube
up a
comment.
Dennis.
storm
Yeah.
at North Carolina. So he's changed the recruiting.
He's not recruiting as well as Ed Orgeron at LSU.
No, but
number 1 recruiting class in the country right now.
LSU
With
and
three
North Carolina.
with 3 Southland. LSU versus North Carolina?
No, LSU can recruit. They always recruit like that.
North Carolina's
doesn't.
always recruited really well.
Not
They,
like
they had
that.
3 defensive linemen go in the first round of a draft, I think, at one point.
Yeah, but North
They also
Carolina's
were
never
getting-
ranked
they
as
were-
high as LSU.
They were
in
also
recruiting
getting
rankings.
free, classes where they didn't have to do anything.
That's true, and it worked. They didn't get in trouble by the NCAA because of Carol Folt, the new USC incoming president.
There you go.
So she'll start July 1st. So yeah, we'll see. July 1st could be interesting. Could just be like she slowly, works into the job, or she starts like making moves.
Did you guys say Les Miles?
Les Miles, son of a. Yeah.
Oh, everybody's back now.
Kansas,
My
yeah.
bad,
So
guys.
there's
I shouldn't
more.
even brought that statement
I
back
knew it was a
up.
handful, but I was like trying to think. Like, yeah.
Because
So
it was only 2 after Urban left, but I think those 2 have both been hired
two of one
since.
where they're still coaching. The
We'll
other
go
guys
with
have
that.
coached other places,
Already. Ryan, you said a strict cutoff date. We're almost at an hour and a
Yeah,
half.
we gotta go. Sorry, we gotta wrap this crap up.
Alrighty. That's going to wrap it up for today's edition of Tunnel Vision. A very special episode. A big thank you again to India Anderson for
Yay,
coming on the
thanks,
show.
India.
Congrats to her. Make sure you look out for her when she takes the field at the start of the 2019 season. Should be fun. just like
Stab the field.
hopefully she
How
doesn't
cool
do
would
it
that
like
be?
that.
Though? Wouldn't that be badass? Like to stab the field, like with the cameras on you. Like, how cool is that? She gets to do something awesome. You don't seem like that's cool. I think that's cool.
Well, it's going to be.
You can't even touch the sword. She wouldn't even touch
It
the
would be
sword.
much cooler to do it at the Rose Bowl,
That would be well. Then,
which
then,
there's
yeah.
restrictions now, right?
Can you do it? Can you stab at the Rose Bowl now, or they
You said they
changed it?
got weird about it.
Yeah, they
Oh.
got all weird.
It's much more fun, and it being in the Pac-12's highlight clips to open in media day, and then everybody freaking out about it
Yeah,
from
that's
UCLA
awesome.
side.
But no, thanks to India for coming in.
Yeah,
so.
big thanks to her.
Hope
Thank
she had
you.
fun.
She's great. Thanks for all your questions and the one caller we had. Interesting. Snake Lake. Jeremiah is a troller. I think he's been on the podcast before.
No, Jeremiah calls the podcast. Though. He's great. Jeremiah,
Alrighty.
Snake Lake.
Snake
yeah.
Lake. Alrighty. That's gonna wrap it up. That's
Who hasn't
shock.
been to Snake Lake?
Apparently not Ryan or I. Alrighty, that's gonna wrap it up. That's Shotgun. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next week.
See ya.